Thomas Rowland's devotion to the 614 locomotive has meant that there has been little time for anyone else in his life.
I've only had 3 women in my life of significance so far, and all have despaired to some degree of my passion for this lady, but all have come to recognize fairly early on in the relationship that they couldn't compete with 434 tons of live steam.
This is one of the most spectacular and famous railways in the world, the Canadian Pacific's 3,000-mile route from Montreal to Vancouver. Constructing a line of this length is an amazing achievement in any era, particularly when faced with this kind of obstacle, the Rocky Mountains. But when the future of your nation is at stake, even the impossible can be achieved.
After the break, Rocky Mountain trains pull themselves up steep inclines.
When Canada gained its independence from Britain in 1867, it was made up of just 4 eastern provinces. The country's first prime minister believed that if Canada was to survive as a nation and compete with the United States, it would have to expand westwards. But there was virtually no way to get from east to west. As a condition of joining Canada, the British Columbia authorities demanded that a railway line be built across the Rockies. The railroad carved its way right through the heart of the mountains. It took just 4.5 years to construct at a cost of $175 million. It was completed in 1886, an incredible 6 years ahead of schedule. For over 100 years, people have come from all over the world to make this journey. Today, the line carries more freight trains than passenger services. To pull a train with over 100 freight cars, you need a lot of horsepower. Here in Calgary, a new generation of diesel locomotives is being assembled. Manufactured by Canadian Pacific, these are the most powerful train engines in the world. 80 feet long and 16 feet high, these metal monsters are capable of pulling 5,000 tons at a top speed of 75 miles per hour. The engines generate 6,000 horsepower and have a fuel capacity of 5,800 gallons. Each locomotive takes 4 weeks to construct and costs over $2 million. But even with machines this powerful, hauling a massive freight train over the Rockies requires 3 locomotives. Master Diesel heads the convoy with a crew on board. Behind is a second engine. In the middle, 50 cars down, is a third, remote-controlled locomotive. This mammoth train needs a crew of just 2 people. The engineer is the crew chief.
9668 last answer in Grove Manor.
The conductor monitors the train's progress and backs up the engineer as a safety measure.
You work your way up, being a brakeman, being a conductor, and eventually you get to go into the training program to be a locomotive engineer, which usually takes up to a year. There's about 3 months of classroom work, and then the rest is all practical. You go and work with locomotive engineers on the different subdivisions until you're ready to be qualified.
This train, over 1.5 miles in length and weighing over 14,000 tons, is bound for Vancouver. The grain cars are huge. Each one holds enough to fill 4 large trucks. Once it leaves Banff, the train climbs steadily up towards the Kicking Horse Pass, where the line crosses over the Continental Divide. On one side of the mountain chain, the rivers flow to the Atlantic. Over the other side, they flow down to the Pacific. One of the most dangerous sections in the early years of the line was the Big Hill, an 8-mile stretch of track with a steep 4.5% grade. Many trains lost control here and derailed. Over a period of 20 years, 6 crewmen were killed. Canadian Pacific was forced to think of a safer way of getting trains over the Rockies. This was their solution. It may look like 2 trains traveling in opposite directions, but in fact, this is the same train winding its way through a spiral tunnel. 2 spiral tunnels wind like a corkscrew through the mountains. This one, called the Pretzel, is 3,255 feet long, emerging 56 feet lower than its entrance. Although steam-powered mechanical drills were used, most of the work was accomplished by muscle and sweat. The tunnels were completed in 1909, after 20 months of work by 1,000 men.
The experience itself is unique for the fact that you go deep inside a tunnel, you circle back around, and you come right out underneath where you went in to look back and see the train above you, which is your train. You're actually in a full loop.
Once through the tunnels, the journey west to the coast is all downhill. The engineer must keep his wits about him.
When you're going downhill, that's where your adrenaline and your heart starts to pump a little bit. Sometimes it gets a little scary. I've never had a true runaway, but there's times when you're not comfortable, you know, the train's going a little faster than you want it to be going, and it's not responding to what you want to do, and now you apply more braking effort, and eventually it does come back under control, but it's not a nice feeling.
11 different crews, each working 10-hour shifts, move a freight train like this from Winnipeg to Vancouver Port in 3 days and nights.
When you make it to the other end of the road, you know, you get the freight from one end to the other, and the state of the country depends on us moving all this freight.
Although most people now travel by automobile and airplane in Canada, locomotives and the massive freight loads they pull are just as important today as they were at the birth of the country. Not many people want to collect rusty old diesel engines, but there are some who see beauty in all locomotives. This man is one of the most successful record producers in the history of British pop music. His name is Pete Waterman, and all he wants to do is drive his own trains.
Advanced passenger trains reach high speeds and tilt with the curves next.